Hello, I'm Carter McNamara of Authenticity Consulting, and I'm the presenter in this video. The group-based action learning process is used around the world as a powerful way to address current priorities and learn at the same time. The action learning process can be modified in many different ways for many different applications. The purpose of this video is to introduce you to how action learning can be used to help each member of the group to address a current and important priority in life and work. This format of action learning is sometimes referred to as a peer coaching group or sometimes as a circle. If you soon will be a member of one of Authenticity's peer coaching groups, then you might already have your tools, including the Circle's Quick Reference and the Session Management Form. We will be mentioning them in this video. You can pause and resume this video at any time by clicking on the button in the bottom left corner of this video. We'll start this video by describing the overall peer coaching group process that each member uses to successfully address a current priority. Then we'll explain more about the process by explaining what a priority is and how each member identifies what priority to work on. We'll share more details about what actually occurs in a group meeting and the coaching process that members use to help each other in their meetings. We'll describe what members do as follow-up to meetings to capture more learning from the meetings. And we'll mention the activities that members do between meetings to successfully address their priorities and learn at the same time. Members sometimes wonder, am I doing the coaching process in the right way? So we'll give clear guidelines for how they can answer that question. We'll end by suggesting resources where they can learn more about the peer coaching group process. In a peer coaching group, each member of the group gets an equal amount of time in each group meeting to address a current priority that the member has selected. The member addresses the priority by getting help or coaching from fellow group members during that member's time in the meeting. The priority can be a current problem that the member is struggling with, or it can be a very exciting goal that the member wants to achieve. Depending on the purpose of the peer coaching group, the process can be highly customized, including the frequency of meetings, the length of each meeting. Groups can be used for a wide variety of purposes. Usually the organization that organizes the groups also ensures that the process is customized for its specific purpose. Each member selects a specific priority to work on in each meeting. We'll look at some examples of priorities in the next slide. An organization might suggest the type of priority for members to work on, such as implementing a quality management program or learning coaching skills. However, it should always be up to each member to select the specific priority within that type. The most important requirement when selecting a priority is that it must be current and important to the member. Otherwise, the member and their organization tend not to benefit from the peer coaching group process in terms of useful actions and learning. A member's priority might change from one meeting to the next. For example, a member might work on time management in one meeting and on career planning in the next meeting. Different members might even have different priorities to address in the same meeting. For example, in one meeting, one member might work on achieving an exciting career goal, and another member might work on improving the performance of an employee. Sometimes a priority is called a coaching goal, and they refer to the same thing. Here are just a few examples of what members might choose as priorities. How can I do a better job of developing my employees? For example, so their goals are aligned with the goals of the organization. How can I improve my time management? For example, I never seem to get everything done on my list. How can I achieve my exciting career goal? How can I improve my coaching skills? How can I enhance my leadership skills so that I can lead other people more effectively? How can I improve my relationship with my supervisor? We have an exciting new vision for our organization, and how can I spread it to my people? Notice that these examples might be described differently by different people. They might be addressed differently by different people as well. Again, these are just examples of priorities. Ultimately, you are the expert at knowing what is most important to you now, and so you are the expert at knowing what is the best priority for you to work on now. Before a meeting, members can use the session management form as a tool to carefully prepare for the meeting. Each organization might modify the tool somewhat, depending on the purpose of the group. This slide includes examples of questions that might be useful to include on the tool to help members prepare for a meeting. What actions did I take from my last group meeting? And which of those did I do? What new learning did I gain from the actions that I did? What is my coaching goal or my priority to work on in this upcoming meeting? Do I want any certain approach to use during my coaching session? For example, do I want primarily thoughtful questions, or do I want to do brainstorming? Are there any resources that I want to share with my group members? For example, to help one or more members with a priority that they had worked on in the past meeting. The Quick Reference tool is used by the group's facilitator and members to go through every step of the group's process in a meeting. Each organization might want to modify the tool according to the purpose of the group. This slide shows the first page of the tool. You do not need to be an expert in this information because your facilitator will review all of this information in the first meeting of your group. As we go through the following description, you might look at your own Circles Quick Reference tool if you have one. The left column includes the Circle Session Agenda. The opening phase of the agenda is when members review values and ground rules for the meeting, and each member very briefly mentions the priority the member will be working on in the meeting. The coaching phase is when each member of the group gets help from other members. Each member usually gets an equal amount of time for that in a meeting. The closing phase is when each member evaluates the meeting and shares any key learning from the coaching in the meeting. Also, all members then verify the timing of the next meeting. The right column lists the roles for the members and facilitator in the process. As a member, your role is to get coached and coach others. The role of your facilitator is to ensure a high-quality meeting by attending to each of the bullets in the section labeled, "What does the facilitator do?" However, if you will soon be a member of a group, then you might find a few minutes beforehand to scan the information through your Quick Reference tool. Let's understand more of what happens in a peer coaching group process by looking at the values and ground rules that members follow in their meeting. This slide shows the back of the Quick Reference tool. Your facilitator will more closely review this information in your first meeting. The left side lists those values and ground rules. One of the ground rules is confidentiality is assured. That means that no member should ever tell anyone outside of the group about what occurs inside of the group. The right side lists useful guidelines for getting coached and coaching others. So when you are getting coached in a meeting, you have the option to follow the guidelines for getting coached. When the other members of the group are coaching you, they have the option of following the guidelines in the section about coaching others. We'll review more now about coaching. The overall approach that members use to help each other is called coaching. The purpose of the coaching is to always be helpful to the member who is currently getting coached in the meeting. That member is often referred to as the presenter in the meeting. The duration of the coaching to each presenter is often referred to as the coaching session. Coaching can include a variety of methods to help the presenter. For example, coaching can include sharing thoughtful questions to the presenter. Questions can help a presenter to think very carefully about their priority and what can be done about it, especially if the priority is a difficult challenge or problem. Also, coaching can include sharing concise advice, especially if the presenter asks for advice. And it can also include sharing practical materials, especially if the presenter asks for materials such as tools or books. Because the time in a group meeting is very limited, it's very important that the coaching be as concise as possible. For example, if a presenter has 20 minutes to get coached in a meeting, but spends 10 minutes explaining the priority, then that leaves very little time for other members to coach the presenter. We'll soon show you some examples of useful questions, and you'll listen to a demonstration of a coaching session. But first, let's look at some general guidelines for selecting useful questions so that the examples in the demonstration will be even more meaningful to you. Useful questions are those that are focused on the presenter's perceptions and assumptions about their priority. For example, what did the presenter notice about their priority? And what did they assume about it? What did they conclude about their situation? And what might they do about their situation? Useful questions are also those that are focused on the presenter's current situation, rather than a long history of that situation. That's because very few problems in the workplace can be solved by knowing everything about its history. Otherwise, any person who already knows all of its history would already have solved the problem. Useful questions also focus on helping the presenter to identify what they can do in the future about their situation. For example, questions about their options and about their choices among those options. And useful questions also focus on new learning. For example, these might be questions about actions, such as what happened, what did not happen, and what new insights were gained from those actions. Or these might be questions about coaching. For example, about any new insights from questions and answers during a meeting. It's important to remember that even though the time for each presenter in each meeting seems to be short, the learning for all members occurs throughout the entire Action Learning meeting because the members have so much in common in what they work on and how they work on it. The inside of a typical quick reference tool gives examples of questions that you might ask when coaching the current presenter in your group. On the left side are 2 columns with sample questions that are organized by the type of coaching goal or priority that the presenter is currently working on. Find the section in the far left column labeled Interpersonal Goals. Questions in that section are useful when a presenter is getting coached about a relationship with another person, such as improving a working relationship with a supervisor or coworker. Find the section next to that labeled Project Goals. Questions in that section are useful when a presenter is getting coached on a priority that is not in regard to another person. For example, when the presenter is getting coached on developing themselves somehow, or when accomplishing some large project, such as developing a plan or spreading a vision. On the right side are 2 columns with sample questions that are organized by the timing or life cycle in a coaching session. For example, at the start of a coaching session, there could be a few questions from the paragraph number 1, then later on a few questions from paragraph number 2. But all of these questions are optional. Members can choose whatever questions that they believe might be most useful to the presenter now. There is a certain pattern in the coaching during a typical coaching session. For example, the first few questions might be about the presenter's description of the priority, so that all members can be sure that they understand what the presenter is describing. For example, Members might ask about certain words or terms that the presenter is using in the description. Then, questions tend to be about the reality or the situation around the priority. For example, members might ask questions about the presenter's perceptions and assumptions about the priority or what the presenter has concluded. Then, questions tend to be about the options that the presenter might consider to address the priority. And then, questions might help the presenter to carefully select which option is the best way forward, including any actions that the presenter might take before the next group meeting. It's important that the presenter selects the actions rather than actions being assigned to the presenter. There is a very useful abbreviation for this pattern. It's the letters GROW, or the word GROW. GROW is a very popular coaching model, and you can find a lot of information about it on the web. But remember that each coaching session is different. A session might not exactly follow this pattern. The most important requirement for any session is that it is always trying to be helpful to the presenter to address the priority. Let's hear a brief demonstration of a coaching session now. In this demonstration, the presenter is named Mary, and her priority is to get better at developing her employees. Mary will be coached by a man named Bill. Although this demonstration includes one coach, you might imagine that his questions could be coming from different members of a group. During the demonstration, notice how the questions are focused especially on the present and on the future of Mary's situation. Also notice how Mary's descriptions and answers are concise, and that she does not spend a long time with descriptions and answers. And also notice that the overall pattern in the coaching, as you listen to it, might follow the GROW pattern.
For my time in our group today, I'd like to get help with doing a better job of developing the people in my team. I want to do the best job that I can, but I'm also extremely busy. I sometimes don't know what I should be doing to develop my people, and other times I have a plan to develop them, but I don't have the time to implement the plan that I'd like to.
If you were doing a great job of developing your people, what would that look like? How would you know that you were doing a great job?
Well, each of my employees would have a clear plan for development and would know what that plan was. Also, I'd be doing a better job of coaching my employees, of helping them to implement their development plans.
That sounds like you want a very good environment for the development of your employees. First, you'd have good plans, and then you would be guiding them to implement those plans. That's inspiring, Mary. What if we talk first about developing the plans?
Well, a good development plan should include the employees' goals, but it also should be aligned with the goals of our organization and our team.
So it sounds like you've already got some guidelines to ensure that development plans are headed in the right direction. How might you work with an employee to get the employee's goals?
We already have a good system for getting employees' goals. Those goals come from the employees' performance plans, which already have some of the team's and organization's goals. So I guess we've got a good start there already.
That's impressive, Mary. So it seems that you think all of the necessary goals are already in the employees' development plans.
Well, we just finished a workshop that suggested new goals for our organization and employees. So those new goals should be in the development plans too.
That's very impressive too. What might be your biggest challenge in developing your employees?
I'm realizing that my biggest challenge is probably not developing the plans as much as finding the time to coach my employees when they're implementing their plans.
What resources might you have to help you with your time? For example, could you delegate more, or could you extend deadlines on other activities to free up more time? What might you do?
I'm reluctant to delegate more to my employees because they're already very busy. Also, our deadlines have been set for a while now, so I can't easily change them. I suppose I'll have to work more hours, but I'm already working overtime. It seems like I'm stuck.
If you worked even more hours per week, what would be the result of that?
I would have to take more time for myself and my family. I'm already doing too much of that.
What resources might be useful to you? For example, have you described this situation to your supervisor? How might your supervisor help you with your situation?
I'm reluctant to admit this situation to my supervisor. I'm afraid it will seem like I don't know how to do my job somehow.
What if you don't do anything? That is, you don't work more hours, you don't talk to your supervisor, and you just keep going on like you have been.
Then my employees won't have development plans that are aligned with our new organizational goals. And I won't be sure that I'm doing a good job of coaching them. I've got to do something.
I agree. Which of the options that we've talked about seems the most useful? For example, working longer hours, or talking to your supervisor, or doing nothing?
I'm realizing that talking to my supervisor is what I have to do. I'll explain the entire situation. The situation is very real, and it's not as if it's somehow my fault. My peers are in the same situation as I am.
When might you talk to your supervisor? You're already very busy.
I have a half-hour phone call with him every 2 weeks. I'll talk to him then.
Are you sure that there will be time in the call for you to clearly describe your situation and to get help from your supervisor?
I'll send him a description of my dilemma before our next call.
That sounds like something that you'll want to do right away.
You're right. I'll send him an email by the end of the day today, in time for our phone call.
Mary, how did this coaching work for you? Were the questions useful? Were there any questions that we did not ask and that we should have?
The questions were useful. One of the things that I learned is that my boss can be a great resource for me and that I don't have to be doing a perfect job all the time. Thank you.
Now that you've listened to the demonstration, let's think about what you noticed and what you learned from it. Did you notice Mary's concise description of her priority? She did not take a long time in explaining the situation, including a lot of history. Did you notice that Bill did not need to know a lot about the history of Mary's situation in order to be helpful to her? And did you notice that Bill's questions instead were about what Mary was doing now and about what might she do in the future? He did not ask a lot of questions about the past. And did you notice how concise the questions and answers were throughout the coaching session? That allows for more time for questions and answers during the coaching session. Was there a pattern in the flow of his coaching? For example, did it seem to follow the GROW model of coaching? And did you notice near the end of the coaching that Bill asked Mary to reflect on the coaching process, including what insights that Mary might have gotten from the coaching? After the group's meeting is over, then the session management tool is also very useful to help members to carefully think about that meeting. The tool is sometimes customized to the purpose of a particular group, but it might ask the following questions. What worked for me in that previous meeting? What did not work for me? What could I have done during that meeting to have make the meeting even better for me? What did I learn in that meeting? Think about new knowledge, insights, perceptions, abilities, and how can I use that new learning in my life and work? What actions will I do to address my coaching goal from that previous meeting, and when will I do them? Are there any specific materials that I would like the group to provide me, or that I would like to provide to certain other group members? Which members? And by when? Between meetings, each member takes the actions that the member selected in the meeting. Then, the member reflects on the results of those actions and any new learning that came from them. The member documents that learning in the session management form. In their next meeting, each member has the option of using the time to share the results and learning and to get further coaching around them. Also between meetings, members can share ongoing questions, answers, and useful resources to address current priorities. And some groups choose to use private email lists or even a private web exchange. So this kind of action learning is really an ongoing developmental relationship that the members of the group have with each other. They are really peers in that they come together as equals to guide and support each member's development through actions and learning. To be the most helpful to group members, there are obvious things that they should do, such as prepare for meetings, attend meetings, and participate in meetings. But the most powerful thing that members can do is to help each other. That means to do the best coaching that they can. You do not need to be a highly skilled and professional coach to be very helpful to the members of your group. Let's look at what successful coaching really is and is not in your group. First, it is not having to solve the presenter's problem or having to achieve the presenter's goal in each meeting. You would not be able to do that in a short meeting anyway. Instead, successful coaching is always trying to be helpful to the presenter, especially by sharing concise and thoughtful questions and sometimes with advice and resources. Successful coaching is always helping the presenter to identify relevant and realistic actions to address the priority, including to take before the next group meeting. Successful coaching is always helping the member to reflect on the coaching and their actions to cultivate new learning between meetings. So, if you follow those guidelines in your group meeting, then you will be doing successful coaching. There are several ways to learn more about coaching, if you wish. There are several examples of coaching sessions that you can listen to on the web. However, there are many different models of coaching sessions, so it might be most useful to focus on learning more about the GROW model for now. You might listen to some sessions of the GROW model in YouTube. You might also read more about coaching, the very highly focused and concise form of coaching that is used in this kind of action learning is sometimes referred to as laser coaching. You might find various articles about it on the web. One of the best ways to learn coaching is to practice it. As we mentioned, the Quick Reference tool has many examples of useful questions. You might use them to practice coaching in pairs with another person. For example, one of you could get coached for 10 minutes and then switch to coach the other. If you know someone who is struggling with a priority, you might practice coaching them. But perhaps one of the most frequent opportunities for coaching is to coach yourself. As long as you're honest with yourself and your answers, you can gain a great deal of clarity and learning by reflecting on the questions and on the results of your actions. If you have any questions about the action learning process, there are vast resources at AuthenTicityConsulting.com. That web address also has our contact information. Thank you for viewing this video.